Thank you very much for joining us for a particularly strange episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. I was going to say to my right, but Andy, you are all the way weird. Beyond my right, Danny Donaldson.
You're the side of the mic. Hello.
So this is a strange episode. Given the circumstances and what's going on right now, Andy and I aren't in the studio together. We're just going to do this whole thing voice only. So this is only temporary. We apologize, but we thought you guys, while you're sitting at home, need some content. You also need films to watch, and we are here to talk about a particularly interesting one with Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. So Andy, give us a rundown. What is Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind all about?
Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind is about a young girl called Nausicaa, who there's like the world's been ravaged and kind of like these kind of bugs are taken over. There's like a toxic wasteland everywhere. There's little kind of things of cities that kind of like some are at war, some are like trying to live peacefully.
And it's kind of Studio Ghibli, but this was actually made before Studio Ghibli was formed.
I was going to say it feels very old for them.
I think it's considered a Ghibli film, but it's technically not a Ghibli film. This is from 1984, right?
Yeah, it's directed still by Hayao Miyazaki, who's like the founder of Studio Ghibli, like the main director of them all.
Yeah, so, and also one of his early works.
Yeah. So just going to go into like couple of rough points, not necessarily a rough point because it's not really a rough point, but the music in this film just really came out of nowhere and kind of like threw you out of it.
So the music, actually, it's funny that we're talking about being a Ghibli film because the music is one of the strangest choices for the film. It's totally 80s. Like when you watch this film, you understand that it's an animation made in the 80s. And it's weird because Miyazaki's later work is often very sort of elegant in its audio.
100%. It's got like a lovely score like to complement the film.
This absolutely isn't. I kind of love it. I know it's not great, but I do kind of love it. It's got that weird like 80s tinge and sort of like it feels very how would you describe 80s music? It's neon, it's electric, it's sort of synthesized. It's, but it doesn't fit with the world, really, if I'm honest.
Well, I enjoyed it up until I just had this person next to me going, here, that's hilarious, here, listen to the music, here. And I was like, my days. That's obviously our lass.
She would not stop being used by the music.
Oh, mate, she would not stop pointing out just how rad the music was. And I was like, I'm trying to watch a film here. We're trying to do a film club together. And she's like, yeah, but listen to the music. It's so out of context. I'm like, oh, my days.
She's most importantly, why was she sitting next to you? You're supposed to be isolated right now, young man.
Actually, this is a bit... You watched this last night. I watched this a while back. So right back at you.
If we're on the topic of audio, I want to talk about that first scene because I love the audio design in that very first scene.
A perfect sound. It even chipped his zirconian ceramic sword. This should make the people of the valley happy. We won't have to worry about finding materials for making tools for a long time.
It's very stripped back. It's very minimal. Everything's got sort of like a reverb to it. You're hearing her thoughts. What I assume they're supposed to be her thoughts. And I absolutely love the atmosphere in that first scene.
It's when she runs into the Ohm shell, isn't it? And she gets the kind of dome and everything like that.
Yep.
I kind of just like, you're on about atmosphere and sound as well, but it's just like the whole place. It just, you feel like you're in a cave. You feel like you're underground and just isolated in this magical world, which, to be fair, like kind of considering this is one of his earlier films, you kind of, the fact that you get that you can see how this has influenced the rest of his work. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's such a good setup, like for the story. Yeah. It's so good in terms of setting up this weird post-apocalyptic world where it's a little bit Mad Max. It's a little bit Fallout. This weird collection of post-apocalyptia with this extra element added in that she's living in this Valley of the Wind, which gives this cool aesthetic with her whole glider.
Yeah, I love that. Like the way she just bosses around that glider and everything like that. Almost reminds me of like Aang out of Avatar, like, or at least Aang was influenced by her, or at least his glider work.
I can see that. And then that leads into sort of like the biggest themes of the film, which obviously are very Ghibli, in that it's kind of about
industrialization
of the world.
The natural world.
A lot of influence from World War II, and the aesthetic design and stuff is very sort of World War II steampunky.
Yeah.
And you also get that nature encroaching back onto an industrialized world. It's really cool.
But that's what I like about, like, talking about the start scene with the Orm there, and she goes down and she sees this like very you see this Orm, this creature of like magnificence, and she's like, oh my god, you know, like this is wow, like this. But then you see Orms later on. So later on, and she sees them all, they're all like angry, got red eyes, and she's trying to calm them down using that cool little like whistle thing that she's got. And that happens a few times. And like your first introduction of an Orm is a very peaceful one. So you know that they can be peaceful. At least it's like kind of dropped in your head at the very start that they're going to be peaceful.
Yeah, I think that maybe I have some little problems with like Nausicaa as a character. I find that like that whistle is a bit strange. That she seems to be able to use the whistle, but no one else uses it. I find that actually she isn't really as proactive as she could be. A lot of times she becomes reactionary and kind of gets dragged through the story, especially later on when she's ends up in prison and like kind of just accepts it, and somebody else has to come along and save her. And like I didn't give a shit about his character at all. But she was more interesting. Not everyone
can be Superman.
Well, that's not the point. A proactive character needs to be your protagonist. Your protagonist should never be a reactionary character who isn't pushing the story forward. And because you need an audience to actually connect with them, and you need the audience to believe in what this character is actually doing and why they're changing the world and why the film's about them, rather than the film being about a different person in the story. And she has that weird moment where it turns out she's figured out what the hell is going on with the infection, and she hasn't shared it with anybody.
It's a part where, again, our last point is out and she was kicking off. It's weird because she's such a big Ghibli fan. And she's kicking off. It was when she obviously changed her dress to kind of like get past the guards and everything to pretend to be the daughter, and the daughter took her place. And then when she was in the middle of all the Orms, the baby Orm, she suddenly had the blue dress because that was like her. Oh, she's the chosen one. And it was a bit like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it definitely feels a little bit like proto Ghibli. In fact, when I was watching this, I got some heavy vibes of Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, 100%. Out of all films that these like they can relate, it's definitely that one, which is oh my days, a fantastic film.
A few peculiar things with the film. Obviously, it's an adaptation of a manga as well.
I didn't know that.
But this was picked up relatively early on in the manga's life cycle, so I think they were struggling with not having enough material to work with, or maybe not having as much material as you'd normally have with a manga. So, and apparently, this was totally re-edited before it came to the West. It was obviously released in the East it was, but it was heavily re-edited in during the release date in the 80s, and that was actually circulated for a long time until I think it was Disney picked this up at one point and gave it its proper release as it's in its original form. I watched it dubbed. I think that just like a lot of Ghibli's work, it's really, really good dubbed. But yeah, actually here it is. I've just been checking there that I wasn't making nonsense up. But yeah, in the 80s, a re-edited version, a heavily re-edited version, that was called Warriors of the Wind. That's what was released in the US. It wasn't until 2005 that Disney took over and released it in its original form.
Oh, I see. So what we watched is probably its original form.
Yeah,
I'll have to watch what the re-edited version is. I'm curious.
Yeah, so interesting film. And if anybody at home is currently wanting to watch this, it is available on Netflix as Netflix slowly drips Studio Ghibli films across the next couple of weeks, months. I think they're about halfway through now, aren't they?
Yeah.
I can't remember how many of they've done, but there's loads on there. So there is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. You can let us know what you thought of Nausicaa down in the comments below. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week, probably in this format again, or I might try and get a camera working for next week, just so we're not so reliant on material from the show, but we'll see. But we are going to be back once again next week where we take a look at another bug-related film.
Oh,
The Bug's Life.
That's well played. A Bug's Life.
A Bug's Life.
Next week for Quarantine Club.
Does that mean we have to come in quarantine? Do we can be reviewing the quarantine?
No. We have to read it because of current matters.
My quarantine, 8 out of 10 so far.
Is it? Oh, it's better than mine.
So until then, get watching.
Bye.